Guys, welcome back to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath Holland, and I'm joined by Bob Trate for a conversation about movies, about the theater, about all kinds of things. Bob, welcome to Serial at Midnight.
Thank you, Heath. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you're the director of programming at the Colonial Theatre in Pennsylvania. Where exactly in Pennsylvania is the theater?
Our theater is, believe it or not, if you've never heard of us, you've seen us because we are the movie theater that is featured in the Blob. So we are in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. We are about 20 minutes or so without traffic outside of Philadelphia. So we're more like west of Philly. If you know where Valley Forge is, we are right over the hill from Valley Forge. So we are a small little town. But we are a former steel mill town, so we had lots of development, lots of big areas. Steel mill closed. The theater kind of went in disrepair. We are now a nonprofit theater, and we specialize in bringing the arts and cinema and live theater and live music to our patrons in the area. But our patrons have, really increased with the pandemic. We started doing virtual events, a virtual Blobfest, virtual horror shows, and that really kind of expanded our audience. So I don't think we're so much the south, you know, west side of, or sorry, southeast side of Pennsylvania anymore. We have people who come as far away as England and Alberta, Canada, that come to our screenings. So we're on a global scale at times.
I was looking at the schedule, and I'm jealous that I can't go to some of that stuff because I'm far away. But I'm like, man, I want to go see that. I appreciate. Now, do you program some of the movies? I know that there's a like right now. What is it? I'm gonna date this, but it's like Oscar shorts. You're showing a lot of Oscar shorts from
Yes.
different years. That's
No,
incredible.
no, it's just Oscar shorts from this year. So one
Okay.
of one of our highest attended events that we have done, and this is something that I inherited as the programming director, is that our patrons love that we feature the Oscar shorts. So it's the documentaries, the live action, and the animated. So we run those programs for 2 straight weeks, and when we look at our year-end totals, each one of those is really high. It's usually in the top 10 of most attended things that we do here. So it's nice. It gives us we can program around those things. We can have different kinds of special events, and we don't have to adhere to the hard Hollywood schedule of what most normal people don't know is run clean. So let's say we get the latest, we get Batman 2, the Batman 2. We have to run that with no interruptions for the whole day. With these Oscar shorts, we can have a screening of A League of Their Own at 1 o'clock, and then we can run the Oscar shorts right afterwards, and then program Mulholland Drive right after that. So it gives us a little bit of leeway and the ability to program other things, especially, when David Lynch passed away, a lot of people had holes in their schedules. They were able to plug in tribute screenings to him. We couldn't do it until March. So, it's just one of those things. Our schedule was so tight because we also have live music and we have some theater events, and we also do a lot of repertory programming.
You do, and I want to talk. So here's how this got started. I had put out a call to talk to somebody at the theatrical level about what's going on with theaters right now because I feel like it's a model in flux, and I want to talk about that. But one of the things that I appreciate when I look at the schedule for what you're programming is what you just said. I mean, you get the Oscar shorts next to repertory movies, next to new things. I mean, you're going to be showing The Brutalist for coming up as again, I'm dating this, but like that's a movie that is now. I mean, that's an Oscar nominee right now. It's the whole breadth and scope of movies, and I feel like that is. I don't know. I don't know if that's rare. I perceive it to be rare. Um, I appreciate that it encompasses all of cinema. It's not like, well, we only do old movies. This is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Do you see a different crowd? Do you see a different audience for the different kinds of movies? Like, is a different audience showing up for a movie from 1960 that's showing up for something now, the Oscar shorts?
Mhm.
Or is it the same
Without
people?
without a doubt. We do have the people that I refer to as the usual suspects. I know whatever I program, they will be there. That could be anything from showing Dress to Kill one night to the Oscar shorts. Like they just love movies. And that's so refreshing when you have those people who are they're into cinema and they want to see whatever it is that we're bringing to them. And those ages can really span. I think we have a 13 or 14-year-old young woman named Octavia who comes to everything. And at first, you would be uncomfortable at sitting in some of the things because you know that there's a 13-year-old girl in there. Um, but she is so engrossed and wants to learn about every piece of cinema that she can see outside of just sitting down and programming something on Netflix or just watching something on Hulu. She wants to see it. But then we have the older patrons who come in who have been with us since we opened in 1999 that rely on that programming of we're doing the Oscar shorts. And like we start getting phone calls when Oscar season really starts kicks in. When are the Oscar shorts happening? When are they? And they don't care. We had one gentleman recently named Rodney who came in and did all three of the Oscar short programming in one day so he could get them all in. So, and that's, I'd say that's almost like 7 hours. So here's somebody, forgive me, Rodney, if you're watching, in his late 50s, early 60s, who is just cranked them out in our most comfortable theater and watched the whole thing. So there's a wide variety. But then I will say in the horror genre, which we do specialize in, I have seen a very strange divide in between horror purists that have to see everything on 35 millimeter. And then you have other people who really don't care about the format, but they are more interested in experiencing it with an audience. So some of the newer films, which are a little bit harder to get on 35, something like Jessica's Body, we ran that recently, and the audience was a total flip. It was much younger crowd. We had one or two of the usual suspects who took the chance to come in, said, I wrote the movie off when it first came in because I guess they were sick of Megan Fox at the time. But then to see how queer coded the film was and how it reaches a whole new audience, like it has matured very well as a piece of cinema. And those regulars who were like 35 and only who did come, they were like, wow, I should not have written that movie off because it really makes an impact and a statement today. And I guess it did then. I just wasn't paying attention. So some people, they're open to the experience of seeing something different, and be regardless of the format. And other people are just they're locked into exactly what is their genre, their thing for them. It's very strange. It's I've dealt with so many different people. It's almost like a movie therapist at times.
Yeah, but well, before we started recording, I was telling you that I'm largely viewed as a physical media guy, and I talk a lot about physical media. And but I'm in the theater 3 times a week, right? Um, I observe that there are these silos, and you're kind of supporting that a little bit too. The physical media people, the primary audience for physical media, does not seem to like the idea of going to the movie theater because they say, well, it's changed. People aren't respectful anymore. They also say there's nothing good coming out anymore, which I think is crazy. But I mean, maybe we're wired. I think maybe we are wired for retrospect, like we're wired maybe for nostalgia. Have things changed? Have the movies changed? Has the experience of going to the movies changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years?
I really think it has. I think in a lot of ways that we've lost our sense of of respect for other people around us. We have definitely. I mean, you cannot not talk about that thing in the room is our cell phones. That immediately draws people. I don't want to go out because somebody's gonna be on their cell phone. So we try to remind people when you're here, hey, this movie is 80 years old. Let's pretend it's 80 years ago. Put your phone in your pocket. If you have to have it on because you're the babysitter's watching the kids, and this was a great out for me. I said, my wife's pregnant right now. I'm going to sit in the back because if that phone goes off, you're not going to see me afterwards. So it's just be mindful and respectful of one another. And another thing I like to mention is you just spent, 12, $15, whatever it is, depending on the film. Sometimes we charge more because it's 35. You just bought a vacation from the outside world. You're inside this room right now, and you are going to be transported to another place, another time, and you're going to get to sit and be with T.E. Lawrence, in Arabia. You're going to go to another planet with Kirk and Spock. Now, do those things. Escape from your phone. You're going to sit down and live the life of George Bailey. You don't need to be on your phone. You can be on your phone at home. You can do the laundry. You can chase the cat away from the TV or whatever. This is your chance to sit down and just zone in on the movie and nothing else. Because it's like reading a book. You want to sit down and read the book. You don't want to be distracted by everything else that's going on in the world. Just give yourself over to the movie and give yourself a break. There's so much at us now and so much. pounding of this and that and hate and anger and just like I want your attention, I want your attention, I want your attention. Go to the movies, enjoy yourself, and detach. Take the rod out of the back of your neck, Neo, and just be in this real world of watching the movie for a change.
Right.
But I do think that I think the audiences, because of streaming, I think there are some members of the audience who are like, I'll wait for it on streaming. I don't have the money and I already shell out $20 a month for HBO. Some of those people don't care about going to the movies, and that's fine. They just want to see it and move on. Um, Someone like myself who has two little kids and I work in a movie theater, it is very difficult for me to just go see a new movie. You get a sitter, not get a sitter. My wife and I, we tag teamed Beetlejuice. She went to the 7. I waited till she came home. I went to the 9:30. That's how we got Beetlejuice in, and then talked about it after I got back. We did that with Thanksgiving as well. So anytime there's something that we really want to see, we'll try to find a babysitter or we'll just hold out and wait. We saw The Substance. Unfortunately, we played it here for a week. I didn't have a chance to see it even during work hours, let alone I had to wait and I just paid for it and then she and I watched it because that's our thing. We like to watch movies and we like to talk about it and experience it together. Um, there are people who love that. There are other people who go and sit quietly and watch and then leave. They do not have the conversation. So it's a very different world that I think streaming has turned off the non-movie fans to be like, I can just wait and then see it. And there are other people who are, no, I want to see that big. I want to feel the energy from the audience of the laughter or the horror or the fear. I'm telling you, it's uncomfortable when you're watching Nora's sex scenes with 40 other people and you're worried about how old are the people sitting next to me? But it's one of those things where you're like, I kind of enjoy this uncomfortableness. It's like when you get pulled over by a police officer and that adrenaline rush, you're like, I didn't do anything wrong. So oh, what's going to happen? It's also that kind of that, had a woman bring a baby into a movie to trick baby of all things. Um, and like it was such a weird experience because it was such a Philly mom who got yelled at by a Philly woman for bringing her kid to this movie, and it was right during the sex scenes, right during the two sex scenes. And here's like a 3-year-old asking her mom for more popcorn out loud. But that's the move that is the movie going experience. You don't know who's going to kind of break those social rules at times. Nobody was on their cell phone. We just brought a kid with light up shoes.
So I was at the movies 2 days ago. Well, it's 2 nights ago, and there was a young teen. I think they were teenagers, late teenagers, and during the movie, they're taking selfies with each other, and I'm like, what, you're taking photographs with the flash, obviously, like, and you want to, I want to be like, hey, MFers, put your phone down. But then I'm the guy who's disrupted the experience for the entire room. What do you guys do when do you get complaints from people? Does anyone ever come and go like, "Hey man, there's a guy in there doing something crazy"?
Yeah, we have some managers who will come over and say, "Please, you need to put that away." We have complaints. You need to put your phone away. We do say it. I mean, we usually a lot of our repertory films are introduced by staff, mostly by me, and I'll come in and say, please put your phone away. If it's that important, you need to get up and you need to walk out. Like you just need to do it. Please don't take pictures of the screen because you can find any image on screen if you want. We do have some ninjas in here that hold it up like this and just click away. And I go to their Instagrams right afterwards. And it's usually the 35 stuff. You'll see like the scratches and what color it is. And I'm always impressed because I'm like, I was 4 rows behind that guy and never saw the phone come out once.
Why are
So
they taking pictures of the screen?
bragging rights, I don't know. Whatever. They take pictures of the screen. So it's we ask people not to do it. We also have because we are the movie theater from the Blob. We do have a cell phone PSA where we say don't be that guy. Well, we have that guy on his phone and it lights up and he's like laughing and giggling and it rings off and you see the other patrons around him like obviously distraught about the whole thing. And then the blob emerges from beneath him and then just engulfs him and pulls him back. And then it says at the end, don't be that guy. Stay off your cell phone. At one point, the one woman who was complaining, she brings up her cell phone to take a picture of him getting eaten. And then her husband just puts her hand down and says, are you serious? So we do have that. We tried at the big shows, over 250 pre-sales. We usually run the cell phone PSA because there's just there's always somebody who comes in like 5 minutes after it starts that, by the last trailer, boom, cell phone PSA comes up. So, our audience is pretty good with it. I mean, because we are a new release and a repertory house, we do have a general audience who's very just like, can you just stay off your cell phone? Other people will complain. So it does, it's just one of those things that we have to deal with. We have little signs up. I don't think anybody sees those signs. It's just cell phone no and that kind of stuff. So it's I think people have just lost how to be polite. And I've said that too. Just be courteous to one another. This is not Mystery Science Theater 3000. This is not talking back at the screen. But it's fun when you do a sing along and you're like, this is your chance to talk out loud. And we generally don't care if you take a picture of the screen as you're trying to get the ball bouncing and stuff like that. The Sound of Music, we have that coming up as a sing along. So I'm looking forward to that. Over 120 pre-sales already. Yeah, we
Wow.
did we've done White Christmas now 2 years in a row as a sing along, and I will never run it any other way. It's usually two to 300 people. We almost sold out the first year we did it. So we're just going to keep running it that way. It's fun, I mean, it's an interactive live experience of enjoying the movie in a different way.
Do
So
you program Rocky Horror during the Halloween season?
I do.
Is that a nightmare to, because do you do the whole
It's
cleaning up the rice and the
We sell our own bags,
Okay.
so we say there is no outside there's no outside materials. You have your cell phone and your costume, and that's it. There's no water guns. Don't bring rice. We try to keep it like we do toast. We recently talked to another group that does bubbles. So we're kind of like, oh, well, that's a good idea. And they were like, and it's kind of like soap. So it's going to start hitting the floor and then it'll, get rid of some of the soda. So we do that. I have literally 6 months later found Rocky Horror Picture Show props that were stuck in between seats that had not gotten clean. So it's frustrating, but that's part of the beast. What amazes me is that I've had people for Rocky Horror say, I don't like this. I just want to hear the movie. So last year we actually had the shadow cast in one theater and did you were allowed to sing along. You weren't allowed to do the yell out stuff. You weren't allowed to talk back, but you could sing out loud. There is not a sing along version. I don't know why Disney hasn't done that, but they haven't done it. And we sold 125 tickets just for that. That people just wanted to go in, no shadow cast, and just do it. I personally, I've seen so many shadow casts now. I've seen it on Broadway. I've seen it, performed at theater companies and stuff. I'm fine with just the movie. I like the movie. I like the songs. I don't need getting hit in the head with rice or somebody holding up their cell phone for there's a light now because we don't even do the lighters anymore. But it's that's a no-brainer. You got to do Rocky Horror in October. Got to do
Yeah.
it.
What do you think? I mean, you seem very well, you obviously are very literate with film and film history. What made you, I don't know, I kind of feel like film fans are born. It's,
Mhm.
there's something about us that I think connects on a deeper level. We were talking about being at Blockbuster and being given the title. What was your title?
Oh, my title was the movie lord because I would criticize people's choices sometimes when they would pick a movie. And this
Oh,
was
you were
block.
that guy.
No, I was that guy. That's the thing. I was that guy. I was that guy that would look down and like, you must watch the cinema is this and that. Um, and the pandemic actually allowed me to change and really remember what it was that I loved about movies and going and seeing it with an audience. Like was already appreciating that while I was volunteering here at the Colonial, but then I was not a guest programmer, more like a volunteer programmer, where I would have lots of horror films that I helped program here before I took over the job as a programming director, and not to have that experience, not to have that audience and people come in. You also see people who we showed Evil Dead 2 and everybody like loved it. It was great. And then we kind of just checked it off. Like, no need to show Evil Dead 2 ever again. And then we'd get this whole new audience that would come in. They would move to town or they would discover us and they were like, hey, when are you going to show Evil Dead 2? And they're like, well, we did that. And they're like, well, when? 2009? They're like, it's 2016. It's time to bring it back. And you get this, it's kind of
Is this
flattering.
Bruce Campbell talking? He's like, hey, when
Yeah,
are we
yeah,
going to? Yeah.
yeah. But it's flattering when people want to watch a movie that you know that they own and definitely have seen in the theater in which they're at. They want to see that movie. So it really started to expand to me that, not every movie is perfect, not every movie is fantastic or great, but there is an audience for every movie and that people can really enjoy stuff. Now, it's hard for me sometimes to get over romantic comedies, because I think that romantic comedies have a time and place, not just for when they were made, but for you personally. Where were you at that point in your life with your love life that you identified with that movie, that you like that movie? And I think that crosses all movies, but romantic comedies are the hardest for me to try to get around. Um, because some have not aged well. Some are now considered like, oh, he's being stalked by her, or vice versa.
Vice versa.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's one of those things where romantic comedies, I think, are very dated in a time and place. But you could also say, why would you go out to see a romantic comedy on the big screen? Like, and is there enough of an audience to do that where you can show a horror film, a period piece, an action adventure movie, and there's a reason why? Where romantic comedies are very small, it's usually two people, and it's a relationship back and forth. Usually, that can take place all at dining room tables, the bedroom, a family wedding. Whereas I always believe in the spectacle of cinema. So like Lawrence of Arabia is so big, to see it on your TV is just awful. It's nice filler until you can get that chance to see it again. But when you have a chance to see something really big or really huge, does does a uh, does a romantic conversation at a diner really warrant a theatrical experience? So it's something that I'm trying to grasp with on my end to say, yes, there is a place for that. And what are those movies? Because you can program Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th, and you will get 125 people to show up, better on 35 than a digital version. But what is the likes of a romantic comedy coming out? That's not When Harry Met Sally. That's
Mhm.
not The Apartment. Because it's a period piece with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, and it's very well written. But what are the other films out there that will draw an audience for some people? So, and do those people want to come? That's the thing. I'm always interested in what people will come out to see. I never would have predicted that we showed Practical Magic a couple years ago, on a Wednesday, and we had a huge turnout. And it was all women who wanted to see that story. I wouldn't call that a romantic comedy. I know there's romance in it, but I was still felt like it was more like a story about sisters. And I think that was the bigger draw of things. So it's interesting when you look at those other films that are not the big spectacle films. Casablanca, that's a romance film in a lot of ways, but it's also a World War II film. And, that is a reason to get out and see it big, because you may never have seen it big. So there's lots of different factors in my brain, and I'm trying to always wrap
Mhm.
around and understand the audience better. I hope that
You know,
answered
it's interesting.
Hope
Go,
that
sorry, go
answered
ahead.
your question.
Yeah, well, you did. I want to talk more about Blockbuster too because that was
Mhm.
such a formative experience for me. But let me hit what you're talking about. They've just released a third Bridget Jones movie, basically
Yes.
straight to streaming.
Isn't it the fourth?
Is it the fourth? Maybe it is.
I think it's
A new one. They've done a new one.
my wife told me. I said, "Wow, they released a third movie." She goes, "No, Bob, that's the fourth." And I was like,
Wow.
"But you're right. It went right to Peacock." Like,
And so I was like, what did the other ones do? So the first one
mhm.
made like the neighborhood of $350 million in like 2000 or 2001. So that's, you adjust that for inflation.
Yeah.
Notting Hill, again, like $350 million,
Mhm.
something like these are huge. That's a huge
Yeah.
return. And I'm like, when did we stop when did we stop going to see them, or when did they stop making them? Why did this Bridget Jones movie not go to the theater? If it
Well,
had gone to the theater, would people have gone to see it?
what's the Glenn Powell Sydney Sweeney movie that did
Oh,
really well?
it's got one of those generic names. It's like I
Right.
can't remember. I know
The
what you're
mod
talking about.
the
I've
modern
put a poster up of it right here so
Right.
people
The
can see it.
modern version of Much Ado About Nothing, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. That movie did really, really well. And there was a lot of industry talk that the romantic comedy was back. I'm like, I think that's hysterical off of one movie.
Yeah.
That Sydney Sweeney had to make the Madam Web to actually get that movie made and released. I think that's hysterical. She had to make a superhero movie to get this movie out. Um, but there's all this talk romantic comedy is back, and then you see Peacock release the fourth Bridget Jones movie, and you're like, you're not even going to take a chance. Like the pedigree of the Bridget Jones series is established. She has been nominated for Academy Awards, and the supporting cast is fantastic. So you're not even going to do, and Peacock didn't even do what they did with some of their recent Halloween ones, same day streaming, same day theatrical. Why not? Why not even just put it in New York, LA, and Chicago, or let anybody book it who wanted to book it to see what would come out? Like you're talking like a $25 download of what we would get at the theater to run. Oh, we're actually running it. It's very, if the studio's not going to believe in us, and then why are they even bothering to send us the likes of Wicked, where everybody could have just gotten, $20 downloads. I had a coworker who saw it 5 times, at least 5 times in the theater. You know, he could have just streamed it. He could have just bought the streaming thing and then been done with it. So I don't understand. Is it an algorithm? Are they just saying that Bridget Jones, that what's her name? I'm sorry.
Renee Zellweger.
Thank you. I think of her as the girl from Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Um, it did the algorithm say she doesn't have box office draw anymore? Judy did nothing. She didn't win. Nobody's going to come and see this fourth installment. And the reviews now for the new Bridget Jones are really good. So there was a major flop. Same deal with Disney, Fox slash Hulu, and the Predator Prey.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Could you
my
imagine
God.
seeing that on the big screen?
I would have killed to have seen that on the big screen. And I know I think there's a 35 millimeter print of it somewhere.
Ooh.
So that, and why did you even not even take the chance? You did with Romulus, but that was only because Prey did so well, and Romulus was supposed to go straight to streaming. So where is the balance? And there it is, horror versus romantic comedy. So, and this is both established. You can't even say they're just different. You've got sequels behind all of them. So you
Yeah.
have an audience for the Bridget Jones movie. It was really sad. It's frustrating for me because as I'm trying to get more people to come to the theater, I'm not getting options to run a movie like that. Or I've got like a 2 week window before it goes to Netflix. Tick Tick Boom or whatever it was, the Andrew Garfield film. We had a 2 week window and we did really well that first week. Second week, everybody held off. And it's just one of those things where you're like, don't announce when it's going to come out. We have a film coming up called Queen of the Ring, and we have a 45-day window before it goes streaming. That's great. That's a
Yeah.
month. That's over a month. So the people who want to see it theatrically are going to get a chance. And even then, your ticket price versus straight to streaming at like a VOD service, as you have to buy it straight out, is probably going to be the same for two people. So I don't think the industry knows what to do. And I think that's the problem. Everybody's relying on AI to tell them, or the algorithm of actors' names and things. Because Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke were in a Netflix movie that got great reviews, never even put it in the theater. And you're just
Yeah.
like, that's Julia Roberts, right? So we have no faith in Julia Roberts, and her and George Clooney had another movie, went straight to streaming. No faith in those two people anymore. They're done.
It's such an interesting time. I heard Robert Zemeckis just made this movie called Here, which is this. I mean, you know what it is, but if the
Yeah.
audience doesn't know, it's a sort of a locked off shot of this house over time, and it covers multiple generations and multiple families and the drama within the house. And he was doing the press circuit after that to promote it, and somebody asked him, what's your next project? And he was like, I have no idea. And he's like, you don't know what your next project is? He's like, we don't know if this is a success or not yet. The bean counters have to decide if it was. He's like, no one knows how to quantify success anymore because the model now is you make a movie. It is the model that used to exist is you made a movie, it was released to theaters, it made money in theaters, then it went to the video market, it made money there, and then that fueled your next project. Now it's in theaters for a weekend or two, and then it's on streaming, and no one knows how to quantify what a streaming success is
Yeah.
because it's a subscription-based model and it's not necessarily a revenue-generated model. And he's like, so I have no idea. He's like, all the movies I've made in my career, Back to the Future, Used Cars, Romancing the Stone. He's like, the Wilson, the volleyball, Castaway. He was
Yeah.
like, I couldn't make any of those movies now because nobody knows if those would be a success ahead of
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yep.
And that's just a terrifying thought for people that love movies to think that
Mm-hmm.
that were at this moment. You know, I think he pronounced his name Brady Corbet, the director of The Brutalist, the filmmaker
Hmm.
behind The Brutalist, is being pretty vocal on his press tour about the fact that he made the movie for $10 million and he's yet to turn a profit from it. Even though the
Hmm.
movie has made money, he has made zero money,
Yep.
and that a studio for the he said for $150 million for the price of one superhero movie, you could make 10 or 15 smaller movies that have very little risk, and those would reward everyone. But
Hmm.
the executives don't seem to know how to do this anymore.
Nope, they don't. And it's the universal their horror movies that they were releasing a couple of years ago until Nosferatu came out of the $3 to $6 million like what was that movie called? The Purge. The Purge is a prime example of like $6 million made 30. Let's make five of them. You know, Megan, Annabelle, these are all films that are made for little tiny money, and then boom, they have this huge success. They don't know where it's coming, so they were dumping them into January where nobody went to the movies. And then all of a sudden they're like, Megan's the number one movie in America. We now have this bragging right. So they don't understand their bean counters, their executives. I mean, I love the guys at Golf Western that were in the offer who, just kind of just went with it, but they knew they had to make money. But I think those guys are so far removed now that it's all business, business, business. How do you quantify Madam Web being the number one movie on Netflix? Is it because nobody wanted to pay to see it? So now they want to see the train wreck. And now the first week it comes out, it's through the roof. Who sat down and actually watched it and just let it run to the end, and just did that? There's no way to quantify eyeballs on the movie. So
Right.
it's just so weird and so frustrating. But what gets me is that I physically look at our numbers and our books. So we just showed Body and Soul, directed by Oscar Micheaux, this weekend with a live theater organ. And I know how many people came and paid tickets to see that. So I know that a silent film, even done by a black director, is did well. We had a discussion. The organist knew what he was talking about when it came to the director and the actors. So, that is a quantifiable number to me. I just don't have 300 of those going on at, different, cinemas on the same day to say, look at those numbers. But why aren't they looking at those numbers? Another thing you would say that you said about movies coming and going within 1 to 2 weeks is that the multiplex has created the demand of seeing the movie opening weekend, and you're going to get a ticket. When was the last time, Heath, you saw a movie and it was sold out?
Yeah, I 25 years maybe. I don't even. I think the last thing I can think of was Forrest Gump, probably.
The last thing I remember seeing, and I had to drive to a totally different theater, was my girlfriend and I at the time went to see Sleepy Hollow. We went less than 10 minutes from my house. It was sold out. And we were like, what? We drove about 30 miles away and went to a little tiny theater that was near a mall that nobody went to anymore. And they had Sleepy Hollow. And we were like one of like 10 people that got into the theater. But we
Wow.
had to see it that night. But
Yeah.
now you have these multiplexes that have 8 screens showing the latest Star Wars movie. You got your whole audience in one night. And
Yeah.
if you
Okay. Yeah. There was The Force Awakens. That's the
Yeah,
answer to your question.
yeah,
Yeah.
that spreads it out.
Yeah.
Original Star Wars, it amazes me that people don't know this. I guess normal people don't know this, that Star Wars ran for over a year at the theater. And that's because it opened and just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger in the radius in which it opened in. So it played in the cities, and then it went out to the smaller suburbs, then it went out to the country, theaters. It just kept expanding, and it went to the drive-ins. It kept expanding. So there were people that were living, in the middle of nowhere that were waiting for that movie to show up. They weren't the guys in 1999 who flew from Australia to Los Angeles to see Star Wars the day it opened because they had to see The Phantom Menace the day it opened. They weren't going to wait for it to come to Australia. That's insane. That's really insane. But we all went to see Avengers Endgame opening night. Did we see it again? No, because we knew we were going to buy it, or that we were going to go and get it on, what was coming. Disney Plus it was going to be there. So they made all their money opening weekend. Even the first Avengers movie, I'd worked for a website where we would do a box office report. I think we were on like week 5 that Avengers was the number one movie. And what was that? 2011, 2012? Wasn't that long ago, in the fabric of time. But that was a movie, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. 5, 6 weeks, the number one movie in America. Now you're lucky if they hit 3 weeks, or 4. Beetlejuice did really, really well. It was over what, almost half a billion, and that's really good for a September movie. And that's where it should be in September. There's so many different factors, and there's so little knowledge to the people, I think, that are the bean counters, that they
Mhm.
don't look at that. They just get their paycheck and then move on.
I've heard that a lot of them don't even come from that part of the business. A lot of people are coming from mobile games,
Yeah,
which I think is very telling because they know a certain kind of business, but they don't understand film release.
right.
And I think we see that every day. I mean, but what frustrates me is, and I think I've already said this, but when I hear people tell me like, well, they don't make anything good anymore, and that's why these things don't do any business at the box office. I'm like, no, there's great movies coming out all the time. If they're not great, they're at least worth watching. Back when I think you and I are close to the same age. Back when I was a teenager, late teenager, I was at the movies all weekend long. I mean, whatever was playing, I was going to see. And it wasn't like, well, what's the word of mouth on this? Or like, how much money does it
Yeah,
make? I
yeah.
was
No,
just there.
I just went. I
Yeah.
went. I made a joke recently. I saw Bridget Jones, and I'm sorry, Bridget Jones, The Bridges of Madison County, and Judge Dredd, the original, in the same day at the same theater, because I just like to go to the movies.
Hmm.
It's directed by Clint Eastwood. I don't care what it's about. I'm going in. Judge Dredd, love Alan Silvestri's score. I can deal with, Stallone, and that movie was garbage. So it's just one of those things
Oh,
where
yeah, no.
even, what's his
Yeah.
name from SNL is making fun
Rob
of him.
Schneider.
Rob
Yeah.
Schneider, right in the trailer, is making fun of him. Um, so that was just the thing. Like, I had my whole summer laid out, like, boom, Jurassic Park 2, Boogie Nights, just boom, 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 and you just would crank them out. I know some people that do that. They literally, but those are the old guard. Those are the guys that love to go to the movies, and girls who just want to see the new stuff in the theater. And, I used to go at midnight so that the next day I didn't overhear a conversation that would spoil a film. They don't even do movies at midnight anymore. It's like 10 now. If they even
Mhm.
do that, I don't even know if they do that.
I saw Conclave at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
So that was, and I got it. That was not the best move on my part because
Is that
that's
a
such a quiet
challenge?
movie. I was
If
just
that
like,
that had to be, I saw Conclave on Peacock, and I'm glad I did. I think theatrically I would have been okay with it, but
yeah,
it was nice that my wife and I could pause it, I guess, and kind of talk to each other real quick about a few things, and then continue
splash
on.
some water on your
Yeah,
face.
but I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was one of the most well acted films, and now it's, at the date of this recording, it's now the lead contender for Best Picture, according to, I think, Variety or Hollywood Reporter or something. And I'm like, that's gonna be our Best Picture.
Yeah, I didn't connect with it like a lot of people connected. I'd be like, it's well acted, but I don't
Mm.
ever need to see that again because it's
Well,
just.
something happens with the Vatican this week. Screening of Conclave will go through the roof because it's basically a breakdown of how they pick the next pope.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was also, from a film point of view, PG. Well, there's a movie. There's a rating you don't see very often anymore, and it was a well acted and well told story. I didn't feel like I was like, I don't know. I didn't feel like I was put through the ringer, but I thought I saw a well acted piece, and I really appreciated seeing the actors in the film, even though I know they're all great. Just seeing them doing their craft in a different, in almost a higher level than what I've seen some of them do before. So, I would recommend seeing Conclave, not Conclave, yes, Conclave,
Yeah.
but I do know a lot of people that don't like the ending. They're like, I'm like, yeah, well, what are we
It
gonna
does become kind of fantasy at some point
Yeah,
because you're like,
it
well, this
does.
would never happen.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know, and maybe it
But people
has.
should watch
Yeah,
whether you like. I don't know. This is the thing. I'm like, go see everything. Go see as much as you can because whether you love it or not, at least you saw a movie. At least there's always something. I want your opinion on this. I believe that for a cinephile, there's always something to connect with. Even if you don't like the larger picture, you could go like, I like that performance. I like that line. There was a piece of music that I loved. I feel like we always find something to hold on to.
I will say that about every movie except Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, because I felt like it was the like the cheapest way of making a sequel of all time. It was just rehash a whole bunch of scenes from the first movie, and that's one of my biggest. People ask me to play that all the time, and I'm like, I cannot stand Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. And I've had somebody say, but people are going to come and see it, Bob. You basically get two movies for the price of one. And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. But I was just so angry because I was so excited. I watched the first one. I'm like, oh, this is different. And then the second one, I'm like, here we go. And I'm like, no, I just watched this movie. Maybe it was watching them back to back was probably just the bad move
Yeah,
on
maybe
my
so.
part. But you're right. There is something you can appreciate music, you can appreciate cinematography. Um, there was a lot in the substance. I like the substance, but there was a lot in the substance that I felt that the average moviegoer was not going to appreciate. Like they were going to appreciate the context, but not so much like the framing, the shots. Like there was so much. And then even then, I part of my brain was like, I got it, and then they would hit you again with it and the point again and again and again. And then I started to think about it going, I think that's where we are now. You have to hit the audience with it 5 or 6 times. You just can't do it once and then walk away. That's a throwaway moment. You need to hit them again with it up to
Is
the
it?
ending.
That's really depressing
It
though,
is.
because do you remember in Family Guy the chicken fight that
Of
just like
course,
it
the
goes
one that's 11
on
minutes
and
long,
on?
the 11-minute
That
chicken fight.
that's the substance. That is
Yeah,
the substance. I'm like, every point you were trying to make, I understood it certainly by the 45-minute mark. And now I'm just tired of this. You've worn me out now. And I
yeah,
think that was maybe the point of it, but I don't like the last half of that movie because I'm like, no, I got it.
I
Stop it.
got
I
it.
got it.
I got it. And I was like, I turned to my wife and I was like, I got it. Is this gonna end? And you move the controller up and look at the counter and go like, man, what else is in here?
Yeah, you're like,
Um,
oh, there's 45 minutes left.
yeah, I
Crap.
used I used to be that guy at the theater. I would wear a watch when people still wore watches, and I would know that the movie was 2 hours, and I'd look and I'm like, and I would try to judge the beats of what I've already seen versus it. Now I don't like to do that anymore. Like I want to be surprised. But for the substance, I felt like, oh my God, how much more does she have to like ram down my throat here? But then I was seeing it from her perspective of the director, the storyteller, to say people aren't going to get this. Like it literally has to end how it started on the same thing. And it made me like the movie more and more as I was watching it. But then I had another moment where I stepped back and I had a coworker here at the theater. That's not his type of film. He wanted to see it. He likes the new stuff. Oh, we got to see it. Blah blah blah. We got to run this and that. And then I thought about him watching that movie at the end, and I was like, I was laughing out loud. And my wife's like, this isn't really that funny. And I'm like, no, no, I'll tell you at the end when it's over. And I'm like, imagine all those people who came to see The Substance that have never seen like Society or Bride of the Reanimator or, any one of those really disgusting horror films. And they're sitting there at the very end and it's because it's been nominated for a Golden Globe and it's going to be up for the Oscars.
It's an
And
important film.
it's an important film to watch. And they are sitting there in that melee of madness at the end. And I'm like, this is a comedy now for me because that whole audience was force fed that. It was force fed that at the end. And I'm like, this is nothing. Like I'm appreciating everything going into this into this movie on a whole different level. So I did like that,
Yeah.
that aspect of the film.
Yeah. It becomes like somebody said when I wrote like a little thing and I was like, I like the message. I think it's an important message to have, but this thing uses a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel.
Yeah.
And people were like, so one guy said, it's like a trauma movie. And I was like, it is like a trauma
It is a
movie.
trauma movie,
It is the
right?
Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine if that would have been released by Trauma and then get nominated for Best Picture. It would have been written off. That's the thing. There's a stigma over branding and directors that I think we've got something coming up here at the Colonial and we're not going to announce it yet. But I had to explain to my ED why we're showing these two films and why but there's such a stigma to like the name like or behind the director and everything, and it's one of those things where there's cinema and then it ages and then where it's places and time and then you know there's nothing worse in those two films than what we showed in Honora or what we showed in The Substance or even what we showed in Dress to Kill. But there's the context of, well, Dress to Kill has Michael Caine in it. You know what I mean? So when you look at some of these older pieces of cinema that I've heard colleagues of mine refer to as trash cinema, and they're right. It was at the time, but it is now elevated and still endures to this point. It's no longer that, but it's still perceived by members of the audience as being that. And there's lots of worse things out there. And it's like we kind of have to get over it, supply the context, and then appreciate what somebody was trying to do back in the 60s or 70s that's now just commonplace. And that commonplace stuff is established because of what they did back then. You know, there was nobody to do those movies. Somebody took a chance, and there's a reason why those movies are being restored now and, you know, come out with, besides the monetary value of putting them on Blu-ray and 4K restorations, but there's a chance for people to come and witness and see them again. And there's guys like Joe Bob Briggs who are actually taking those pieces of cinema and saying, like, look, Gator had a place, and why? You know, these Burt Reynolds movies, these redneck movies, they have significance because without them, we wouldn't have these other car movies. We wouldn't have these other characters that you now see in cinema that have elevated cinema, you know, just because it wasn't made for, you know, $30,000. It's now made for 30 million with an actor you've actually heard of. You know,
Yeah.
so there's always context is needed, and there's always a time and place for cinema, and we have to look back and remember the stuff that was not held in such high regard.
Where do you see the future? You're seeing new people coming in, you know. Sometimes I worry. I'm a comic book fan.
Me too.
Um, Comic book collectors my age and older basically don't
Mm,
exist anymore. We all stopped going to the store. We read, you know, we read our collections and we read
mm,
digitally. There are not a lot of new comic book fans entering into the hobby. That's my
mm.
concern for movies as well. What do you see? Do you see a new influx of new blood?
Um, I'm seeing, I see new blood. I see some of the younger faces, and unfortunately, I think at times I'm in that bubble of other people like me who have children now who bring their kids to see things like Evil Dead 2. You
Yeah.
know, like we always go up to the parents like, have they seen this? Is this okay? Because there's, you know, there's this that whole tree scene. And they're like, they've already seen it like 10 times. And you're like, oh, okay. So there is that generation that's passing it on. And I often see it as I go back to the Universal Monsters. Like my dad showed me the Universal Monster movies, and that's how, you know, I found these creatures, these monsters, you know, oh, scary and this and that. And then it elevated into, well, what other movies are there? Or what other films are out there? And then I discovered the Hammer films when I got older, when they were starting to become re-released again. It was easier to find box sets and DVDs of all these things that weren't just these dirty old video cassettes that you were looking for. So I think that people like us who love cinema, I think we will keep passing it on. Um, and I think it just takes the right kind of movie to bring people out. I also believe heavily in the trailer. We here at the theater, we put we'll have repertory screenings and we'll put trailers of repertory movies coming up, not just, oh, isn't this cool, we put this car movie trailer with a vanishing point, even though we're never going to show that trailer, that movie from the trailer. No, I don't believe in that. I believe in, hit the audience. You've got their attention right now, they're waiting for the movie to start. Hit them with 2 to 3 minutes of something coming up, and with that, I think you can suck people in, or like, hey, I'm here with my friend to see Vanishing Point. They're raving about the movie, but then they'll see something else that's coming up, maybe in the same vein. Maybe it's something we're just trying to push.
Mm.
But I do believe that the trailer and a movie poster can really pull people in the old style and way that they did before for generations. That's all you had. Lobby cards, movie posters. You know, we showed Die Hard this year. We had a poster. An artist made us a Die Hard poster. We put it in the lobby, never ran a trailer, and just had it on our website and had the poster right where everybody could see it when they walked in. We had over 275 people show up for Die Hard. Didn't have to do a trailer. But if I have a trailer for, like, we showed the car. So we ran the trailer for the car months before we just tucked it into every kind of movie that we thought would, maybe this would appeal to the people. The trailer for the car went from, is this a real movie? That's what we would hear from people in the audience, to, I have to see this movie. because it looks so ridiculous. So I believe that if you can hit them with a trailer that's going to suck them in and show them maybe even some of the original trailers for movies are great and there's a reason why. Other movie trailers, they're awful. The original trailer for Batman is like 3.5 minutes long, and it's basically the whole movie right in front of you.
Yeah.
But then Warner Brothers recut the trailer for streaming services now, and it's like 90 seconds of pure awesome. So you can watch a trailer like that and you're like, yeah, I got to go see Batman again. Like, you've seen it 100 times, you own it, but I want to go see it. Yeah, these guys are showing Batman. I want to go see that.
I
So,
just watched Batman when they re-released it last year, and
mm,
I saw things that I've never noticed before by
yeah,
just by seeing it on the big screen
seeing it
as an
big.
adult.
But I think that audiences are always in flux, and I think it's the true cinephiles that are going to endure. And I also think it's the movies. We need a reason to go to the movies. And I was looking at like the 2019, I think it was the reason why you and I were going to initially talk was about why did movies dip after 2019. And when I looked at that list, those were must-see movies. You had Frozen 2. Every little girl at the right age when the first Frozen came out wanted to go back and see Frozen again. You had you had the Rise of Skywalker. Everybody wanted to see how Star Wars ended. And then you had the Avengers Endgame, which was 10 years worth of Marvel movies to see how this all went down. And you had that epic moment at the end. So I mean, those were the top three. And then you had Toy Story 4, which is not the best Toy Story movie, but it was still, you loved Toy Story 3, you went to see Toy Story 4. So it was all of those factors that drove the audience to see those movies in 2019. Is Toy Story 5 even going to do that? Like, are people even interested that much to go out and see a movie two or three times like you did with some of those films in that mix? Like, I only saw The Rise of Skywalker once. I was like, I'm done. It was okay, but it was just pretty much the end of Return of the Jedi. So like, why? It was nothing different, you know. I think I did see Endgame twice. I think I did see that twice because I wanted to see that moment again where
Yeah.
he's got the hammer and he says Avengers assemble, and it's just the melee of madness that took
Right.
10 years to get to, and that was something that I really, really wanted to see. So I
You
think we
don't think
need
we have that now? I mean, I don't think we do, but
I don't think we do. Like, I'm trying to think of something coming out. I thought Deadpool was a movie to get your butt off the seat, out of off the couch and go see.
yeah.
And I think Deadpool paid off. And look how many people went to see Deadpool and Wolverine. That was one of those movies. Um, Inside Out 2 was another movie. People loved that first movie. They went to see the second film. So, Wicked is a cinematic experience, but so many people I know did not know that it was part one because they took it off the title. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was also another one. A friend of mine said, looked at his watch and was like, they're not going to wrap this up. Like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, boom, to be continued. And it was one of those things where we had a lot of people, nobody was upset, but everybody was like, I didn't realize it was part one. So I think when the next one of those comes out, that might be the event. Barbie was an event. Oppenheimer, the two of those together was an event. And we had people going to Barbie first and then Oppenheimer second, and vice versa, depending on what was sold out. So
Right.
that was an event. They tried to do it with Gladiator and what was it, Moana or whatever, and that's not the same. It you can't replicate that. But Barbie was an event, and we had an event style screening. I would like to believe that the new Superman with James Gunn is going to be that style of an event. I could care less about another Jurassic Park movie. I don't care who's in it. Like, it doesn't do anything for me anymore. Like, the first movie is a spectacle. It's amazing. I never lose sight of seeing that movie the first time that I saw it. It's still that magical to me. Each time you go see it, you think that would diminish. It doesn't, but I never want to go see those sequels again.
They're all trying to capture the magic that is, I think it's
Yeah.
largely gone now.
Yeah, it was
We've done it.
amazing to see the dinosaur, and it was amazing to see all of the work that Phil Tippett did, that Sam Winston did, that Dennis Muren did, all of those guys, to see what they did and how seamless it was, the blending of each thing. Now it's just like, okay, well, we combine two dinosaurs and we have a monster. You're like, that's not really dinosaurs. That's you could just make monsters. Like, why
Well,
don't we
so if
just
people
do
are
that?
tired of that, and we know they are, because a lot of these well, I don't know. I think that last Jurassic Park movie did all right.
It did okay.
Um,
It's something safe you can take the kids to. Like, and it's
yeah.
a little bit scary and it's an adventure, and that's what
Yeah.
it is. There is that audience too that wants to take their kids out and have a good time. But how expensive that is, depending on where you go. We didn't even get into. You talked about niche things that the studios are doing now. Everything is IMAX. Everything
Yeah.
is the 4D experience or whatever like that. And you're like, that's great. But if I got two kids, am I going to spend that much money to go out? Plus
Hmm.
popcorn and soda and all those other things. So a theater like mine, we can't do the 4D stuff like or the IMAX and all the other screenings. So yeah, I think we get a lot of people for the second viewing of something like Oppenheimer who really wanted to see it on 35 or really we could have done it on 35. But we had Noir City that weekend. So I said we're out like because we've got four noir films going to be on 35. It's your chance to see Streets of Chance on
Well, that
35.
and that's what you should do too, because people can go see Oppenheimer. No, they can't see it in 35, but they can go
Mhm.
see Oppenheimer somewhere else. They can't go see all those noir films,
Yeah,
probably with Eddie Muller in attendance,
he
telling
was.
people the
Yep, he
czar
was
of
there.
noir. Yeah.
Yeah, he was here when we did Barbie and Oppenheimer, and he did an interview and he said Oppenheimer and Barbie like collectively is like 5 hours or 6 hours or something like that. And he goes, you know how many noir films you could see in 6 hours? He was like, please. But he said I endeared us to him because we could have done Barbie and Oppenheimer in the big theater, which seats 600 people, and instead we did Noir City in the big theater because it's the big theater, it's the old theater, and it's also the only place where we can do 35. So we had to do it over there. But it was one of those things where the old movie should be over here, the new movie, you know, everybody's packed in there to watch Barbie, and you can get the energy better instead of being all spread out. You
Hmm.
get the energy, and that's another thing. I watched a trauma film with 50 people. It felt like 100 because we were in a smaller theater because they wanted us to run the restoration. So we're like, okay, but the energy was there. The impact was there, and that you don't get that at home watching it by yourself for the 100th time. And I think people need to experience that, and I think that's what gets them out. I want to go see Casablanca. I want to see White Christmas with an audience. It's the new films that I think people are shy on taking the chance on. So that's why, and it's in the industry now. Old movies are going to save movie theaters because it's that experience, and I also think it's a safe bet. Hocus Pocus re-released. Go see Hocus Pocus again, not the sequel, the original, because you know what you're getting for your money, and you know the kids are going to have a good time. So that becomes better than going to see, well, is Inside Out 2 really going to be what the kids are going to like?
Yeah.
Or do I show them Hocus Pocus in a way where they have to sit down and watch it? You know?
Well, that takes us back to where we started the conversation with me appreciating that you show everything and that people can go see a repertory film. They can go see a classic that they love, but they can also go see something new that they haven't seen 100 times and have that experience. I think there is a certain onus on the film fan to leave their house from time to time and take a chance on an experience that they haven't had, to not just live in nostalgia, but to take a chance on something that they might enjoy and might connect with. And that requires a little bit of work. It requires
Mhm.
looking at what the showtimes might be. It requires looking at the marquee or, if, for your theater, looking at the website, looking at the calendar. It requires a little bit of work. People tell me all the time. I had no idea what was like. I post Instagram pictures of what I'm going to see. They're like, I didn't know that was out. I'm like, I've been checking the show times every weekend, almost every day for 30 years. Probably longer than that. I'm like, just do some work.
We are a rare breed of people.
Yeah.
And I have a joke here with my executive director. We call them normies of the people who don't just go to the website, click the poster, and you get the show times. I'm somebody who used to sit at Walden Books with a Cinescape magazine and look at everything that was coming out, which I think is hysterical because they do that in Box Office Pro now. They just don't give you the full title of the movie. They'll say Warner Brothers sci-fi film with a date, and then they don't even give you the cast. But then you go look and they'll be like long legs, and then it'll give you the cast of everybody that's in it. You're like, horror. And you're like, okay, well, I don't know what long legs is, but at least I know the date. People are very people are very sorry about that. People are very I don't know, they have to put it, you have to put it right in front of them. And acolytes for, I think more people saw The Substance after it got its nominations, after it got Golden Globes. I really thought that Pamela Anderson was going to get nominated for The Last Showgirl
Or Jamie Lee Curtis.
or Jamie. And here we booked it, had a good run for it. As soon as the Golden Globes were done, it did okay. They didn't win, but people were still interested. When they didn't get any Academy Award nominations, woo, had to drop it. So
Hmm.
it's one of those things where without the acolytes, people aren't going to bother to go see it. And that's another, it's a reason why I don't like, people are like, don't you love the Academy Awards? I'm like, no, it's this game. It's a game that the studios play with advertising dollars. So Roadside Attractions, which released The Last Showgirl, probably didn't have the money to throw Pamela Anderson out there to do the talk show circuits after the Golden Globes because that's all she had. So if they weren't lobbying for her to get nominated for an Academy Award or had the money to go do it, or if Pam even cared to do it, then it wasn't going to happen. It's like Harrison Ford. He doesn't go. He doesn't do it. He doesn't care. But the studios, the smaller studios who, A24, look at the marketing that they had for Everything Everywhere All at Once. No wonder it won. They
Yeah.
pushed, 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 and they walked away with Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress. So that's the whole game side of it. If you don't live in Los Angeles, you don't see the depth of it. And it's sickening the money that they spend on billboards, magazines, for your consideration everywhere. They don't do that when you're on the East Coast. You don't see it anywhere. Times Square, I get it. It's a tourist trap. And there's a spectacle. But why that? Why did I see a Andy Serkis Gollum billboard for your consideration when I was in LA on vacation once? And I'm like, well, wasn't his performance enough? Like, why do I need that?
He
Like,
really wants an
yeah,
Academy Award.
yeah. Like, why is that? Why do I have to pay for the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Shouldn't some committee just decide that it's worth spending the money on instead of me paying for it? Mindy Kaling, sorry. Why again are you getting that? Oh, because you paid for it. Okay.
Yeah. It is a game.
It's a
It is,
game.
the whole
It's
thing is a
all
game.
it's all a game. And I don't like playing the Oscar sheets anymore. I don't like doing any of that because, you literally could come down to the votes. And I think that's where Amelia Perez has is winning because the votes are being split between Honora and The Substance. So if the Academy really wanted to be transparent with everybody, they should put the votes out there and say, 45% went to Honora, 40% went to The Substance, and this 10% that's now eliminated, or 45, whatever, 40, 40, and then the last, 20 all went to Amelia Perez. That's why she won, because the other votes were split. It's not like, okay, now we got to these two. Now which of these two is going to win?
Yeah.
It's not like that. So I believe that's how Marissa Tomei won for My Cousin Vinny. The votes were split in other directions, and then she was the only one that had the most votes. Because the other ones were fighting between the other two actresses at the time. It's not a fair competition, and George C. Scott said that we should all be playing the same part for us to be judged to see who is the best actor. We're not, and that's why he didn't show up to take his Academy Award for Patton, which he deserved. I don't know who else ran against him that year, but he deserved to win, and he didn't even bother to show up because he didn't care.
We could talk for another hour just
We could.
about we really, and you know what? Come back, and one of the things I want to get into next time is what creates people like you and me, and we can put a pin in that because I think
Oh,
that again, like there's a whole lot of factors there,
it
like your
there
path
is.
from there to here.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me, we can clearly see your love of movies. Tell people this is probably going to go up around the time of the Oscars. So we're talking about like maybe early March.
Okay.
What do you want to promote? Do you want to promote anything? Do you want to talk about what's coming?
Well, at the Colonial Theatre here, if you are in our area, if you would like to make the trek, we are spotlighting women in cinema this month. We've got several screenings that are coming up that put women first, neither the characters or the history or the director. We're showing a very odd one. We're showing is Wanda. And that's at the end of the month. And that's a movie that was actually shot in Pennsylvania, so it's something that we wanted to spotlight. We're showing A League of Their Own, Penny Marshall's fantastic film. I mean, that just has history all over it. But then we're also showing things that some people, like Wonder Woman. And here was Patty Jenkins. She did an amazing thing. It's not my favorite film, but she took the superhero genre to a new place and gave us a strong female lead. And I think Gal Gadot did a great performance. It's not my favorite superhero film of all time, but for some people, and I've been told this, and that's why not every movie is for you, and other movies are for other people. That was a movie for them that really showed them that women could be strong, that they could take center stage, and they could stand up to tyranny. And it
Maybe that
really
13-year-old girl in the audience, you know?
I don't think that she would go for it, to tell you the truth, because some of the stuff I've seen her like, she tells me what she likes in her own little way. It's great, but we've got a lot of great Braves coming up. We're gonna spotlight The Last Unicorn. So we're doing lots of things for women in cinema, and we're ending the entire month with The Color Purple, which is one of my all-time favorite films. I mean, for multiple reasons, not just the cast itself, but also to it kind of a tribute to Quincy Jones because he produced it. He also did the music for it, which is weird because at the time Spielberg was all John Williams, but for this, nope, it's Quincy Jones. So I love little things like that. You think you know somebody's filmography and everything, and then you're like, well, John Williams is not on that one. But of course, we are the movie theater from the Blob. And we do celebrate Blobfest every July. So July 11th, 12th, 13th of this year. We allow you to do the reenactment of running out of the theater, which is what everybody knows us from. But we will screen the Blob. We will screen the Blob in Spanish, and then we're doing this year's theme is Camp Blobfest. So not only do we have movies with camping in them, but we also have some campy films as well, and we haven't announced those yet. So it's a full 3 days, lots of fun reenactments. We play our theater organ. Two of the repertory films this year for Blobfest will be on 35 millimeter. So yeah, we're really excited this year. It's going to be a little bit. It's always family friendly. That's what's nice about Blobfest. You can come with the kids. You can be the grandparents and bring the kids. You can be the mom and dad who are bringing their parents and their kids and everybody. You can have a really good time. All the movies are fun. Even we have one rated R film, and that's our 9 o'clock horror film. And I know lots of kids that saw it. I saw it at 17. So there's lots of fun to have at Blobfest, and it's always in July. We just have a big slate of 35 and 16 millimeter films coming as well. So we're really embracing 16 millimeter now as a new like niche that we can play in our smaller theaters. 35 we
Right.
can only do in the big theater, but when we have a concert's going to trump those sales. So we've been playing 16 millimeter movies. We just did Trick Baby from Universal for Black History Month. And that was, we had a nice little audience for that, but it was one of those movies that nobody else nobody else ran that in America this month. I'm pretty sure we're the only people who ran Trick Baby, let alone on 16 millimeter. So we've got a lot of different things here at the Colonial. So you definitely want to check us out, thecolonialtheater.com. And then we're on Facebook, we're on X, Instagram. We also have lots of, lots of fun things coming up if you like interactive experiences. We would do a speakeasy, we have a drag show, lots of concerts and things.
I'll put links in the description of this episode. Do you want to put any of you want people to find you anywhere?
Sure. I was branded the movie lord when I
By
worked at
yourself? No, I'm just
no by a Blockbuster patron and then given that name tag by a coworker. I wish I could remember her name, but I am the movie lord on Instagram. That's a great way to follow me. I usually just post things about, this my soundtrack of the day. It's my nerd shirt of the day, but I do post a lot of things before the Colonial does about what's coming up. So if I know I booked Tombstone on 35 millimeter, which we do have booked, I'll have that up. I love to early promote that because I know a lot of people now who come here follow me and they know that I'm going to drop either hints or I'm just going to announce it right away as second I find out that we're going to show something like Bullet on 35 millimeter. So we always spotlight Steve McQueen in another movie before Blobfest. And this year it's going to be Bullet on 35. So I'm really excited to bring that back. Last year we did Towering Inferno, which I think is a fantastic movie. Where else are you going to get, Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, and O.J. Simpson in the same movie with Fred Astaire? So, what else do you want out of movies?
right.
Again, dating and context of a film that O.J. Simpson is the chief of security.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so crazy.
That's the value of that stuff too, is the time capsule aspect of it. And that and like the late night talk show circuit from the 60s and the 70s when they'd have like, here's seven people that have nothing in common. Let's talk about an issue. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, you're
yeah.
like, whoa, okay, yeah. I think that's what Bill Maher's show is kind of like now. These hold all these different people, get a good opinion and conversation
Yeah,
going.
I think
So
that's true.
yeah.
I'm going to compliment you on your Mahoning Drive-In shirt. And if
Oh, thank
people,
you.
I've talked to those guys, and this is a good place for me to be like, hey, if you want to hear me interview the Mahoning Drive-In crew, here's that video. I'll link to that too.
I thought we were all going to be radio and not television. I would have worn a Colonial shirt, but the Mahoning Drive-In is not far from us. I'd say about an hour and a half to 2 hours from us, but
Yeah,
they were just here and they just had their road show. Their second road show date was here. We showed Dress to Kill and Alligator as a double feature, all in 35. It was a straight night from 1980. And this was the shirt I wore today. I usually wear a Colonial shirt, but you can see the little car and everything. But
yeah.
I do recommend going to the Mahoning. Those guys are great. I go myself. Been to a lot of their horror events, but now that I have two boys, we're going to go see The Wizard of Oz coming up in April. So we're hoping to
Nice.
go see that. So it's a fun night out at the drive-in, and I think they're one of the last ones. I think they're the only one now doing all 35.
I think, yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
which I think is funny because they do VHS. And I have been there for a Blu-ray. I have been there for a Blu-ray.
Nice.
But again, the context and the time of what it was the only way you could show Dawn of the Dead. So,
Yeah.
you
It's a
know,
different thing. They're doing something that really nobody else is doing at that level. And the people that they have come, I'm not trying to do a commercial for the Mahoning, but like
but
you guys do different things, and
yeah.
I understand that and I appreciate that. I want to thank you. I'll say goodbye to you after we finish the recording, but thank you
Okay.
for being here and just I've enjoyed just talking about movies with you, the business of it, the fandom of it, and what it looks like right now. So I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be outside of my bubble and talk to other people, and it's nice to know that you're not alone. Because my family, my inner circle, we've all been together for 30, 40 years. We all talk about films, and this is to me it's normal. So it's nice to meet somebody new and be like, oh no, there's other people like us. We just haven't met yet.
Yes, that's exactly right. So thank you, and let's do it again at some point.
Yes, please. I would love to talk about the journey.
Yeah,
Because mine has definitely been on the unusual side. Yeah.
that's a good tease. Until
Yeah.
next time.
Until next time.